I grew up in very rural New England, in a place with 2 cops, 3 stoplights, and an overabundance of gossip. My parents and sisters really thrived in this close community, but I had never appreciated having everyone I'd ever met constantly up in my business, so I'd hightailed it out of there the first chance I got. It's a fairly traditional place, and by those standards, I was not exactly a child bride. As the last of my sisters to get married, great was the joy that reigned in my family when my engagement was announced, not just because I had finally found someone, but because this meant my mother and sisters could really go to town with all of their plans for the blessed event. Ideas that hadn't quite made the final cut for their own weddings, but they still wanted to give them a try. I did not get that chromosome. I was very happy and excited to be getting married, but I had 0 thoughts about flowers and dresses and music. So a whole group of people who were really raring to go about centerpieces, that was fine by me. As the date got closer, the usual wedding items staggered into place. I selected what I thought I wanted for wedding party dresses and was promptly informed by my sisters that I had chosen wrong and they would handle wedding dress part selection for me. This included mine. Seriously, we went to the wedding dress store, and I told the lady, I just want something simple and flowy with no glitter on it. She did look a little confused, and so my youngest sister did one of these. She means no beadwork, but she'll try it if it's tasteful. To which I then said, I can hear you, I'm standing right here. But on the other hand, I was the bride who forgot about invitations. I forgot. So it was a little hard for me to be too judgy, which is why when I said to my mother, oh, I had an idea about flowers, and she said, oh, my friend Robin's already taking care of that. I said, oh, okay. Mom's other friends were also getting involved. Since I didn't live there anymore, Mom would call regularly with updates, and she would tell me things like, Mrs. Pasquarello was giving us the glass lanterns from her daughter's wedding, and Mrs. Torrance's son is getting married the week before you, so we can use the same tent and split the cost. Isn't that great? My dad got in on the act at one point. This was shortly after I'd gotten up on my high horse to say that I would not be registering for gifts since I believed that marriage was a personal life choice and not some sort of achievement to be rewarded with presents. That lasted for maybe 2 weeks until my dad called me and said, listen, your mother has been friends with Christine Ross for over 30 years, and Christine wants to buy you a present. She doesn't know what you need, so for the love of God, would you please just register so your mother's friends can show her how much they love her by buying you something? I registered. And then on one update call, Mom tells me, Mr. and Mrs. Carafino have a very special surprise for me waiting at my wedding reception. Diane and George Carafino lived right around the corner from my parents. Their kids were the same age as me and my sisters, and I'd known them since I was 5. But we have an unusual history. 10 years prior, I had been living in Ecuador, and they happened to take a trip there, and they came to the town where I was living. I strongly suspect my parents had prevailed upon them to make this detour so they could report back on what kind of neighborhood I was living in. While they were there, they were in a gruesome car accident, and they nearly died. I visited them in the hospital every day. I helped a little bit with some translating and paperwork. One night, I snuck a pizza into their hospital room, and you should have seen George's eyes light up when he saw that flat white cardboard box. You would have thought it contained the Shroud of Turin instead of Ecuadorian pizza. I was more than happy to help. They were in a horrible situation, but from that point on, they decided we had a very special bond. Well, the great wedding day finally arrives, and it couldn't have been better. The ceremony was lovely. The flowers and lanterns and tent that my mother's friends had all organized for us were all perfect, and I married my wonderful husband. After the ceremony, as we're standing in the receiving line being congratulated by everyone we'd ever met and several that we hadn't, friends would keep bringing us glasses of champagne. And as we're standing there, I could have sworn that out of the corner of my eye, I saw someone wearing a sombrero. But I had had 4 glasses of champagne and no food, like a lady, and I wasn't totally sure that was what I'd really seen. But then 20 minutes later, it happens again, and this time we both see it, and we get the full view. A man in traditional Aztec clothing with a long black braid and a sombrero goes walking right by. My new husband and I do one of these. But at that moment, we were being summoned to the taking of the pictures, so it was going to have to wait. The instant we were furloughed from photography, a couple of our grad school friends from Costa Rica came running up to us, giggling, champagne, and said, "What is up with the mariachis?" I nearly spit out the first bite of food that I had had in 10 hours. What? But then there they were, 3 mariachis carefully packing up the guitars that apparently they had been playing during the cocktail hour while we were off getting our pictures taken. Now, I admit, I had been fairly cavalier in outsourcing control of this event, but it did seem like the kind of detail that somebody would have mentioned to the bride. Well, I quickly pull aside my beaming mother, and all I can get out is, "Ma, why are there mariachis here?" Mom is positively glowing. "Wasn't it so nice? Remember I told you the Carafinos had a special surprise for you? This is it. Wasn't it so thoughtful of them?" Now, I would like to point out, I was not upset about this. This was the best day of my life. I had just gotten married. I was rocking an awesome dress with no beadwork, and I had a pretty solid champagne buzz going on, so I felt great. But I was also insanely curious, so I give it one more try. Mariachis though, why exactly? And Mom says, "Well, because of Ecuador, of course." "Mom, mariachis are from Mexico." "Well, I don't know, they thought you'd like them." Damn it, I registered. I thought that the whole upside of registering was supposed to be that this kind of thing didn't happen. I can hear some of my friends from Costa Rica behind me cracking up at the white people in New England who thought that Mexico and Ecuador are the same place. And for a split second, I was mortified, but then I realized I had just gotten married, surrounded by people who made sure that my wedding day had flowers and lanterns and a tent and some very peppy cocktail hour music. So maybe a car accident 10 years ago meant that now there were a couple of mariachis wandering around my wedding who had no idea they were living thank you notes representing the country of Ecuador. But the people who had watched me grow up wanted to show me how much they cared. So for the first time in my life, I appreciated the benefits of being from a small town where everyone was up in my business. Thank you.